Welcome to Sidekicks, the weekly cybersecurity podcast hosted by Richmond Advisory Group's principal analysts, that's namely me, Rory Duncan.
And me, Christina Richmond. This podcast is your go-to partner for understanding the cybersecurity market, industry trends, and the real-world challenges of protecting organizations today. Good morning, good afternoon, Rory.
Yes, good morning, good afternoon, Christina. How are you?
You know, I'm okie dokies. Really excited about this year, having some great conversations already. And I don't know, I feel very optimistic. How are you? What's going on?
Oh, fine. Well, that's good to hear. I'm just pleased we're recording it today and not yesterday. Yesterday I was very hungover from my birthday celebration the previous night. Oh, yes.
Oh, dear.
However, I've managed to kind of blow the cobwebs away, and I'm feeling much better today. Thank you very much. So,
oh, well, I'm glad you're feeling much better. But you did have a good celebration, didn't you?
Yeah, I know. When my wife, Carol, totaled up the number of drinks I had, it was a little sobering, I must say, to realize how much I'd had.
Or not sobering.
Or not sobering.
Maybe the opposite of sobering.
But also, as one gets older, one is less able to, manage the alcohol. So
it's so true.
So we'll draw a veil on that. Yes. So what have we got on this week then, Christina?
Yeah. So big M&A news. CrowdStrike, CrowdStrike. I remember when they were first founded. Gosh, I'm so old. And I had meetings back then when they were this little tiny startup. And now they are one of the biggest acquirers. So we have some news about Signal, SGNL, and Seraphic Security, which they just acquired. So that's a big one that we'll be talking about.
Yes. Also this week, another or more AI startup news. Surely not.
Yeah, more.
Surely not. As I've said to you before, I really love that phrase about, moving out of stealth, as if there were some kind of a lion on the savannah or a leopard or something.
There is.
However, I thought this was an interesting one because it's an AI security platform, a company called Witness AI. And they've announced that they've raised a bunch more money from investors, good for them, to help bring its unified AI security and governance platform to market. And it was the governance part of that I thought, that's worth investigating, because we're all for governance, aren't we, Christina?
We're all, yay, governance. No, but it is important to have AI governance. And, the other one, it's not right up there with Witness AI coming out of stealth and getting a lot more money. But another one in the governance realm that I've been watching is something called Zenity.
Oh, yeah.
It's an AI agent lifecycle governance. They talk about deep agent behavior governance. Anyway, I think this whole area is fast moving and growing quickly. So good for Witness AI. Bully for them, right?
Yeah. And on the topic of agentic AI, we had a bit of a what could possibly go wrong story, where a bunch of researchers have discovered what they call the most severe AI vulnerability to date at ServiceNow, due to an AI agent interacting with a legacy chatbot.
Ruh-roh, Scooby.
Yeah, exactly. It's the stuff we've been talking about and our guests have been talking about for the last 8, 9, 10 months. This is all well and good, but what could possibly go wrong if many of these autonomous agents are let loose?
But I also wanted to mention that upcoming, probably in February, we're going to have a gentleman on whom I spoke with yesterday named Jonathan Nguyen Day. He is the CTO over at Ackett. It's a PQC company. And it's relevant to what we were just talking about with what could possibly go wrong. He and I were talking quite a bit about the watchers watching the watchers. The machine-to-machine efforts in cybersecurity.
Yes.
And he made a massive point about data. And of course, we all know it's about data provenance. We all know it's about the reality of, is your data what you think it is and can you prove it? Yep. Do you even know where your data is? Yada, yada, yada. So I just think the one point he made was fascinating, which is we are going to become predictive right now we're very reactive, cybersecurity.
Right.
And then we're moving towards proactive, but we are going to become predictive over time. So what you talked about with ServiceNow, the what could possibly go wrong, AI agent interacting with a legacy chatbot, we're in the mud right now. But eventually those relationships between the AI agent and legacy chatbots, it'll be a modern chatbot, will become capable of having more smooth predictability, shall we say, and be better governed so that we can be moving into this realm of predictive security. He thinks, I actually agree with him, but boy, do we have a long way to go.
Yeah, we do. We're still in the mud. So let's try and drag ourselves out of the mud and dust ourselves off and talk about the first news story, Christina. So
let's do that.
I think and as you mentioned, big M&A news this week. Well, this month, in fact, since we did our last episode, all sorts of things have happened with CrowdStrike, and they've made 2 acquisitions. And I'll talk about the first one. I don't know, maybe you talk about the second one, and then we can have a chat about it.
I'll probably jump in about both of them.
Yeah, you probably will. Well, the first one, and I hadn't realized that, I was emerging from the mud of the post-New Year activities, but CrowdStrike announced their intention to acquire Signal, SGNL, and a big identity-related acquisition this. And it's quite a good blog post. So Michael Santunas, the CrowdStrike's president, announced this in his blog on the 8th of January. So if you look at the reasons behind it, there's a bunch of reasons behind it, but the blog post talked about the aim to evolve CrowdStrike's security platform to address modern risks posed by the explosion of human, machine, and AI agent identities across cloud environments. And this is a topic we've talked about quite a lot.
Quite a lot.
Yeah, quite a lot. It appears that the strategy is focusing on this idea of achieving zero standing privileges, which is ensuring that users and autonomous bots only possess high-level permissions for the specific duration of a task, which is interesting, right? You get permission to do that for this thing, and then off it goes again. So that was an interesting one. What were your thoughts, Christina?
Zero standing privileges, it's kind of a play on zero trust. And I would say, at least from the conversation I had yesterday with Jonathan from Ackett, and he's ex-Fortinet, he was at Verizon before.
Right.
He and I were talking about zero trust, and he actually is calling out that SASE capabilities that are used to help us on the journey towards zero trust can't possibly give us true zero trust. And I'm sure he'll talk about it more when he comes on. But the reason is that we cannot validate or verify the data in the server. Like we cannot substantiate that the data we have in server X is the data we think it is. And he has a whole story about that, which is going to be very, very interesting. So what I would say here is, yes, we can look at zero standing privileges and talk about how this bot has access to that task, or this agent can talk with this legacy chatbot, if you will. But that's just operational. That's not looking at the data. So yeah, good move by CrowdStrike. I'm glad they bought Signal. I think it's expanding their capabilities in that sort of modern identity, next-gen identity that they've been touting. And it is a very necessary place for them. It was a weak spot for many, many years, and now they're building it out. It is also critical for the new frontier, the new perimeter as we go forward. So, yeah, I think it's an interesting acquisition.
Great. Well, the second one, hot on the heels of the first one, was the announcement that the CrowdStrike is planning to acquire Seraphic Security. And this is a big browser-native protection acquisition here.
We're hearing a lot about browsers.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where agents and AI seems to play quite a bit, right? Is in the browser.
It is, and we've had a few guests on who've talked about this or mentioned that, yes, this is where everything happens in the browser now. Everything happens in the browser. I'm sure others would disagree, but it seems as if that has kind of resurfaced as the front line when it comes to data protection and then protection from processes that would then try to subvert the access and identity involved in that. So at least from CrowdStrike's perspective, the idea is that combining Seraphic's technology with what they see as real-time telemetry and identity authorization, CrowdStrike says it can enforce zero trust policies within any browser session without forcing users into what they see as restrictive specialized software. So the idea is that this is kind of moving away from app-based authentication or authorizations. This is about how they can beef up the browser capabilities. So yeah, I mean, that it echoes many of the things that we've talked about, particularly given CrowdStrike's very public and very high-profile role within the industry. What do you think, Christina?
They're beefing up a lot around AI, right? They're also beefing up identity and browser capabilities, which I think is great. It's very critical. I think it's timely. I think their strategy is spot on. I'm a little tired of zero trust. I'm a little tired of the zero trust washing that we've had for years and years and years. And you know, Kindervog did a great job of selling that one, and good for him and good for Forrester at the time. I don't know if John has made any money off of the zero trust name, but good for Forrester. But I think we're moving beyond it, and I don't know what is next. Is it just kind of, I don't know. I have to think about that one. But sure, it's a good acquisition. So let's do the numbers on this, because I know you did some kind of analysis around. And is it Seraphic or Seraphic? I don't know, but you did some analysis around those two companies.
Yeah. It was really just to kind of do the due diligence on another very acquisitive company. But to your point, we at the beginning of the conversation, Seraphic.
I don't know.
So Seraphic, that's CrowdStrike's 11th acquisition, but since 2020. It's not their 11th acquisition ever. And if you look at the trend, it's kind of an accelerated rate of M&A. So they bought two companies in 2024, two in 2025, and now two in January already of this year. Wow. Even though the deal amounts weren't disclosed, it's kind of widely reported that both together would be, over perhaps $1 billion in total, which is quite a lot.
Change these days. No, that's chump change. Come on, $35 billion for Wiz. I mean, come on. No, but it is a huge amount of money. And all joking aside, the two in January 26 already, when they had two in all of 25 and two in all of 24, it kind of follows suit with this AI and agentic AI revolution that we're in. Yep. They had to make those acquisitions. Yeah. And if they hadn't, people would be asking questions. Well, why not? Is it because you're developing internally, and then the pressure would be on the internal development? But of course, the point about a service provider is, much of their appeal and their ability to pivot is based on the services part. It's not necessarily based on, 3, 4, 5 year development cycles for, dedicated products. It's something that they can buy in, they can partner with. So, I think it's the right thing to do. Add it incrementally in the bits and pieces that they need to shore up their own solution, which is great. And without being too churlish about it, CrowdStrike, as I mentioned, is very high profile. And, we've talked about this before, actually a number of times on the show. I do remember the blue screen of death for Windows computers in July 2024. Yep. Airports were closed, airplanes were grounded, hospitals had issues with booking patients, etc. The dependency we have on CrowdStrike is very, very noticeable when something happens, as it has done. Yeah, and one could argue that these service providers like CrowdStrike, I know it's a product company as well, but the whole kind of EDR, MDR capabilities that they have, there's a move in the market right now with folks saying we don't just need to look at the endpoint. I mean, this has been actually for about a decade that folks are not just looking at the endpoint, they're looking at network and identity and email and all of the different bits and bobs of telemetry that they need. But it's a deeper move now to look at the browser and to look at data in flight. It's not just about looking at the end user's traffic and telemetry from those devices. It's looking at the data in flight as best you can. So I feel like Seraphic, Signal. These are some of the ways they're stitching that together. As much as Zscaler when they bought Red Canary, it's a similar kind of thing. Companies are broadening their purview to get beyond just the device-focused or network-focused perspective, which is apt.
Yeah, that would be an interesting separate story or paper to write up. We should have an...
I'm working on it.
I see. I was about to say we should have an editorial side meeting at some point to discuss that. So, great.
I agree with you. Yes, we'll write something on that, folks, and we'll publish it. Yes.
Great. Thanks, Christina. So, Christina, the next story on our list is about Witness AI, and they're raising $58 million, no less, to help develop and go to market with their new AI security platform.
Do you think if we called Richmond Advisory AI, we could raise $58 million? What do you think?
Well, even if we raise a fraction of that, I think it would be worth it for sure. And that's such a good idea. In fact, we did mention it maybe about 3/4 of the way through last year. I'm sure we did. Yes, I shall go back and look. But it's definitely something that I think the sentiment was, if you're throwing money at anything with a .ai extension, domain extension, please send it to us. We'd be very happy to do a much better job and to be much more responsible with the spending of it.
We'll be stewards. We'll be stewards of the money. But no, so Witness AI has raised $58 million, and that brings them to a total of $85 million. And they were just founded in 2023. So they're babies, but these babies are turning into teenagers as fast as we can even imagine.
Yep.
But anyway, so the investment round was led by Sound Ventures, and they have additional support from Finn Capital, ForgePoint Cap, I've known those folks a long time, Qualcomm Ventures, and Samsung Ventures. So interesting that Qualcomm and Samsung are involved. That is interesting.
Well, and which actually is a good indicator that these guys must be onto something. There's something that they're doing that must be of interest and concern. It's not just another, yet another startup. And I looked a little bit more into what they do, Witness AI, and we talked about this at the top of the show, which was about governance. That's what caught my eye, that this governance platform designed to help organizations integrate AI while maintaining strict oversight and protection. Now, often when we've talked about anything related to security and AI, they've kind of been at opposite ends of the scale. On one hand, the freedom and the ability to hand off responsibility for doing a task to an agent will kind of accelerate and explode the capabilities and the productivity and so on. On the other hand, the security professionals are going, whoa, hang on a second, do we really want to do that? And what about the risks and so on? So this seems to say, okay, we recognize that. Let's acknowledge the fact and give governance capabilities through this oversight and protection. So Witness AI describes itself as a kind of having a confidence layer that allows businesses to observe. So we've got the observability part, observe the AI interactions, and then block cyber threats like prompt injections and so on, and then enforce regulatory compliance through real-time data masking. So I thought that was interesting. Others will do some of this in some parts of their platform, but as a sort of a standalone or something you can add, I think that's a really interesting way, leading with governance, which is great.
Well, leading with governance, but also saying you can't leave protection out of the equation at the same time. So doing both. And, we haven't met them, and it would be good to meet them. And so let's reach out and have a briefing with them, because I'd like to know, how can you do both effectively? And that would be what I would be asking if I were listening to this podcast. I'd be like, well, how do you block sophisticated cyber threats like IPI, prompt injections? Or how do you enforce regulatory compliance? And how do you, at the same time, also do policy-driven oversight and governance? And so it's a lot. It's kind
Yeah.
of eating the whole elephant at once.
It is.
So not that I'm doubtful of it. It's fine, but I'd like to get to know them better. But it's an interesting piece of news in that they have raised money quickly. We've talked a lot about governance of late, and they are doing more than just governance, which is, you're right, it's usually bifurcated or trifurcated into different buckets, and they're trying to do it all.
That's right, doing it all. I mean, if it was a chocolate elephant, I'd certainly have a go at eating the whole thing. That's for sure. But I think, lots of questions. On the one side, our discussions over the last year have gone to, well, at the end of the day, you really kind of need to build security protection in at the code, the source, the code.
Yeah.
And then everything falls out of that. If this is not necessarily an after the fact, but if it's about regulating the usage, then how does that work? Is it the case that you say, okay, the policy here is never to use AI for doing these things, or we're not going to allow agentic capabilities for this function or in this industry or for this particular task?
Yeah.
It could be
How
any
do
and
they
all of the
limit it?
above. Yeah, exactly. Which is good. These are the good questions to ask, as opposed to the kind of skeptical questions that we have.
Right.
And the point being, if they're positively looking at how to drive AI innovation, but recognizing the fact that they say that, companies will be very careful about their IP or how their operations run and so on. They don't want to be compromised. So that's a good approach. But let's, if on the off chance that anybody from Witness AI is listening, it'd be great to have a briefing from you.
I just reached out. Yeah,
you did?
Just real time. I just reached out. And I mean, what they say is that, their objective is to accelerate AI-driven innovation without compromising sensitive IP or operational integrity. And those are two very distinct pieces that they're trying to span the bridge. Yep. So it'll be interesting to get to know them. So stay tuned for that, folks.
I could tell you were multitasking because I basically said that while you were typing the email.
Busted.
Funny. I maybe leave that in. What do you think, folks? Shall I leave it in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Whoopsie
no.
daisy.
Hey, listen.
Busted.
Multitasking. Let's do the last section. Yeah, we've got one more story here. And
we do.
Sorry, folks, but it is about AI.
Yeah, we just can't get away from it. I mean, it's all we talk about anymore. And that's fine because it is what everyone is talking about.
Yeah. And the quote here, I would encourage you to read the article. It's in dark reading. One of the quotes, which kind of summarizes it quite nicely towards the bottom of the report, says, well, quote, before code gets put into a product, it gets reviewed. Now, we just talked about that on the previous story. But the advice is the same thinking should apply to AI agents. In other words, before an AI agent is attached to or let loose on a service or a product, it should get reviewed as well. So this is about ServiceNow, and a group of researchers have found that it's classed as a severe AI vulnerability has potentially hit ServiceNow. There's no allegation or evidence that it has affected anybody directly, but it does point out a vulnerability in the virtual agent application programming interface, the API. And it seemed to be pretty straightforward, Christina, to do this.
Seems like it would be pretty obvious that we need to apply the same law of physics, if you will, that we apply to developing code, that we should apply that to AI agents. But I think what we said earlier in the show about how this is early days, attaching to a legacy chat bot, is going to break something and create a vulnerability. And as we move towards a more modern, potentially more predictive environment, this will have to be eradicated, right? Yep. We'll have to get to the point where, as they say, every third-party service that authenticates through the API has to be tested first. That code has to be tested. It has to be reviewed before it gets to the agent.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. If you think about when many of these chatbots, in the early days of AI or earlier days of AI, chatbots were very much the thing, right? But they certainly didn't have to contend with autonomous agents. They just had to contend with, thick-fingered humans typing rubbish on the keyboard or misspelling things. That was about as much as they had to do. When we got agents or potentially many agents at the same time trying to access the chatbot, some of those perimeters that would have been in place at the time were not really built to cope with something like an AI agent activity. So I know that some may say, well, that's the issue with it's a fault of the legacy system. I think that's a bit rich, in as much as if a system was never designed to have to cope with that, then where does the fault lie? Or is this not an infrastructural aspect, or is this not a good example of where you have to test something before you roll it out?
It seems like you have to test something before you roll it out.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it seems pretty basic to me. Shame on me for saying that. But on the other hand, yes, we're in a new technological innovation period, and AI it's a real thing. And if you're going to start using something like this ServiceNow external agent, you've got to test it first.
Yeah, exactly. So, and just to say, folks, the chap who tested this had to kind of impersonate a specific user in order to do something significant like that. But he illustrated the fact that when it came down to some of these identity issues related to agents, like this AI agent, then these are the kind of things that happen. So there we go. And of course, it's been patched. ServiceNow says it's been patched, but same thing could happen again. And I know in our predictions, we talked about this. There is a risk that, a major vulnerability in one of the big AI model developers could result, or autonomous agents, if they run rampant, could kind of pile on these multiple threats as we see them.
Yeah. Well, that was a good one.
Fine.
I think the news was really interesting today. There was quite a thread of governance and AI agentic, vulnerability. And the acquisition, also the two acquisitions from CrowdStrike to Seraphic, acquiring Seraphic and Signal. So I think, interesting bit of news you've pulled out. So thanks for that, Rory.
Yeah, no, and I'm sure over the coming 3 or 4 episodes of the show, we will continue to talk about M&A. I think everybody had a kind of a break over the holiday period since Thanksgiving, although not completely. And others will be acquired over the coming months.
So I think we should probably wrap. Next week's guest is another person returning to the show. Who's that?
It's our old friend Ryan LaSalle, CEO of Nisos. And we'll be talking to him about, some of the things we talked about last time, including insider threat management and everything else related to that. If you would like to get in touch with us, you can do so in a couple of ways. You can reach out through our website at richmondadvisorygroup.com, where we would encourage you to have a look. There's lots of things to download there, some of our research, some of our blog posts, and you can also sign up to our mailing list. But if you're going to be doing it boomer style, the best way to get hold of us is through email. So that's Rory Duncan. So that's Rory at richmondadvisorygroup.com, and
Christina Richmond at richmondadvisorygroup.com. And please do sign up for the mailing list, and we'll be expanding our mailings this year, and we'll be expanding our content on the website. So check in for that. We'll try not to spam you and just send you interesting tidbits.
Yes, we promise only interesting things come from Richmond Advisory Group.
There you go.
Yeah.
.ai.
That's right. Send us your money. We will very happily accept it. Even a fraction of 58 million would be very, very helpful. So thank you all. Hopefully you can tune in again next week. We look forward to interacting with you in the meantime. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.